Welcome, everyone. We hope you're all doing well during these very challenging times. We have you all on mute, and if you have any questions, please use the comments or questions or comments, use the chat box below. Hi, I'm Aaron Lieberman, Certified Financial Planner, Managing Director of Marathon Wealth Management, and member of the Long Island Collaborative Divorce Professionals and moderator for today's webinar. What is collaborative divorce and why is it important and why now? Today we will discuss why the collaborative process makes sense, but why it makes even more sense now during the COVID-19 pandemic. The courts are closed to all non-essential cases and are not taking on any new ones at this time. Collaborative is always settlement-minded, and the process can begin and continue without the restrictions of the court. Our goal is to educate as many people as possible about collaborative divorce. You're going to hear more detail overall. However, calmer, compassionate, supportive, solution-based are not words that are typically associated with the divorce process. Who are Long Island collaborative divorce professionals? I'm happy to introduce three members of our Long Island Collaborative Divorce professional team from the respective areas of expertise. Deborah Rubin is the senior partner at Rubin and Rosenblum. She has practiced almost exclusively in the area of matrimonial and family law for more than 25 years. She's also trained in mediation and collaborative divorce. Elise Parisi is a clinical social worker specializing in relationships and abuse for almost 30 years. She is collaboratively trained family support specialist. And Donna Lascala is a certified divorce financial analyst and registered financial consultant, a mediator, and collaboratively trained financial neutral. Donna provides financial advice and support to individuals seeking divorce. Let's start with Deb.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I want to talk to you a little bit about the collaborative process from the legal point of view. As somebody who practices in the fields of litigation, mediation, and collaborative law, I have the ability to tell you the real benefits of participating in the collaborative process. In the collaborative process, you have an attorney each party has an attorney who represents them and is there to guide and support them, give them legal advice, and protect their interests, while at the same time working cooperatively with your spouse and your spouse's attorney with the goal of reaching a resolution of the matter. The purpose is to cooperate and share information, and the adversarial process that frequently exists in the traditional litigation model is not there. Time, energy, and money isn't spent on taking strategic positions and posturing. Everything is goal-oriented, with the focus being on helping you and your spouse reach a resolution that you can both live with going forward. From a time standpoint, the collaborative process is far more efficient than the litigation model. In the litigation process, you spend hours and hours in court waiting for your matter to be heard. And during that time, no focus is on your case. You will then have a situation where the attorneys go into the back in chambers, speak with the judge, and you're not even a part of it. You don't even know what's going on. Whereas in the collaborative process, the timeline is set up by you and your collaborative team. You can have meetings every week or whatever suits you, your spouse, and the rest of the team, with the goal of moving your matter forward as quickly as possible. This is even more critical now with the COVID-19 crisis going on because you can't get court dates now if you don't have a matter pending. You can't commence a new divorce action now. But with the collaborative process, you can sit down right now and start negotiating and working out your marital issues with the goal towards resolving them. Finally, from a cost standpoint, the collaborative process is far more cost efficient than the litigation process. As I mentioned before, a lot of time may be spent waiting in court during the litigation process. Whereas in the collaborative process, all time is focused on you and your spouse and your case. You're not getting billed while your attorney is waiting. Efforts are put exclusively into your meetings, your issues, and working out a resolution between you and your spouse. If you have any questions at the conclusion, you will have an opportunity to ask them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Elise, let's learn a little bit about your discipline.
Thanks, Erin. So I'm in the mental health field, and every family support specialist is trained in mental health. But the difference is we are not acting as an individual therapist or marriage counselor in the collaborative process. What we do is we recognize the priorities and concerns of each party. We enhance communication, which is often very difficult at this junction because there's lots of heightened emotions. We assist in parenting plans and all the concerns regarding children, if there are children. And we introduce conflict resolution skills for the process and beyond for the years once there is an agreement and after the divorce as well. The family support specialists, we're also a really integral part of the team. So we work with the parties, the couple, but not only the couple, we work with other professionals. And this is what makes it very different to usual litigation. We're there to provide emotional support and encouragement and promote constructive negotiations so that intense feelings don't get in the way with the settlement process. What about now when there's all these social distancing guidelines? During the pandemic, being able to listen to and understand each other's perspective is really important. Children now and adults were all exposed to so much uncertainty and also so much frightening information. And of course, our day-to-day routines have been altered. And so a family support specialist can help parents talk through a lot of these social distancing guidelines so we can get some coherency there and create a model that's not confusing for the children. How can, at this time, a family support specialist also help you figure out what parenting schedule works best for the family, especially now when all the schedules have totally been thrown to the wind? In our experience, parents who participate in the collaborative model learn how to adjust to ordinary changes during ordinary times, and certainly now we're in extraordinary times. So we have to find new ways or better ways to communicate with one another and arrive at a new temporary parenting schedule that can accommodate everybody's needs as best as possible. And one of the things I want to leave you with is that the collaborative way contrasts stories from regular litigated divorces, where one parent often refuses the other to have access to the children. And how on earth do you do that right now when we're all in the same space? The family support specialist is also going to assist to make sure that the parents' needs, as well as respecting those of the children, will be respected. I'm going to hand it back to you, Erin. And again, certainly questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Elise. Now let's hear from Donna on the financial aspects of collaborative divorce.
Thank you, Erin, and good morning, everyone. So one of the basic questions and first questions that I get asked as a certified divorce financial analyst and even as a financial consultant in general is, how am I going to be able to live? How am I going to be able to financially survive after this divorce? So the role of the financial neutral really comes into play here because we can take a third-party approach to the problems that arise. Marriage assumes that all assets are jointly owned, whether they are in individual name or not. Divorce of course, assumes that those assets are now going to be separately owned and they're going to be divided. And that brings up a lot of issues. So the financial neutral in this collaborative process helps not only the parties who are getting divorced, but helps the other professionals understand what each of those assets are, whether it's the marital residence, or it's the retirement plan, or it's a closely held business, how to use maintenance and child support, how to factor in Social Security. These are all questions that come up. And now in these times of crisis where we have seen significant market fluctuation, there are a lot of questions that are now being raised about how are my retirement assets going to sustain me after I'm no longer working? If I'm not working right now, how is my income going to be used effectively in order for both parties to live? So the financial neutral can provide a roadmap of sorts and can help all parties and professionals understand what each of these assets are, how they're used, what the tax ramifications might be, what equitable distribution is going to look like, and then create various scenarios with the help of the couple who are the ones that are going to be affected, as to what their lives are going to look like after they sign that piece of paper. In the traditional litigated model, the lawyer is not necessarily going to say to you, okay, so after you sign this stipulation of settlement, this is how you're going to be able to live. But the financial neutral can, and whether that financial neutral is a certified divorce financial analyst or a CPA forensic accountant, we have certain skills and knowledge that will absolutely make the process easier, better, more cost effective, because you don't want to pay your attorney or your mental health professional to figure out what your retirement plan is going to be. So each professional in this process is specifically trained to handle their part of the process, which makes it all move along more smoothly. And of course, during these times, as my other colleagues have said, all of this can be done via telephone, via Zoom conference, Skype, scanning, faxing. All of the documents can be collected. They can be analyzed without ever having to step foot inside a courtroom. The only time you wouldn't necessarily need a financial neutral is when there are very few assets, if the couple only has a primary residence or a very simple IRA account. Then you don't necessarily need a financial neutral to be involved in the process from beginning to end. But there have been a lot of times when my colleagues will call me with a question, and I can certainly answer that question specifically and help guide them to go along with the process. Aaron, back to you.
Thank you very much, Donna, for that great overview. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you all found value in this overview of the collaborative divorce process. We will be hosting future educational workshops called Collaborative Circle. Please be on the lookout for additional information in the future. Now we will open it up for questions. If we don't get to your question, please reach out to us various ways on this slide. This will also be recorded, and we'll be sending out, if you've registered with us, we will be sending out a copy of the recording in the very near future.
So Aaron, I'm looking in the chat room and I don't see any questions right now, but I just wanted to throw out some questions that I frequently get asked when discussing collaborative divorce. So very briefly, my name is Liz Vaz. I am the president of the Long Island Collaborative Divorce Professionals, and I'm like beyond proud to be part of this organization of professionals who bring a kinder, gentler, and more holistic approach to divorce. Because as we know, especially in such uncertain times, the last thing that any family that is going through separation or divorce, the last thing they need is for more turbulence in their life. So the one thing that I often get asked as an attorney, so I will turn this over to my collaborative colleague, Deborah Rubin, is legally, how is it that the collaborative process can assist me outside of court? Do I not have the protections of the court? Am I not going to be able to now say, I need X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to go and ask the judge for that? How does that work?
Well, Liz, as you know, the idea is to come into this with everybody being on the same page in terms of wanting to settle their case. And most people coming to this process don't want to go to court. Court is an uncertainty. And when you go to court, you never get what you think you're going to get. And you spend generally a lot more time and money. So while I frequently have clients in the litigation process who think I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to the judge and all of these bells and whistles are going to go off and they're going to hear what I'm saying and it's going to be magic and I'm going to get what I want, that's not the way it works. It's an illusion. The judges are overburdened. They have a huge calendar of cases. They have to pull up their notes to recall your case from the last time you appeared a month ago. And speaking rarely helps you in court. In addition to which I previously mentioned, it usually involves conferences between your attorneys and the judge without you even participating. So your goal in this process is to stay out of court. And look, if it doesn't work, you both always have the right to go to court, but that is rarely, except in the most extreme circumstances, to anyone's benefit. The most productive thing is to fashion a resolution between you and your spouse that the two of you can live with going forward, rather than to have a stranger who knows neither you nor your children make that decision for you.
Well, I 100% appreciate that and agree with that. And I really hope that if we take nothing away from this, that really resonates, is that people think that they're going to go to court and tell their story and the judge is going to be able to hear them and side with them. And just like Deborah said, that's not very rarely, that's just not the way it works. In reality, that is not how it happens. So having this process to be able to have someone to hear you is very important. So another question that I would then pose to Elise as the family support specialist on the same, along the same lines, having somebody hear you, how would you find it more challenging now, especially during times of COVID, having Zoom conferences or Skype conferences with a couple? Would you find that more challenging to be able to truly hear them, truly read their body language, being able to hear what they're articulating, what their concerns are?
It's a great question, Liz. I've actually just come off completing a Zoom case where 3/4 of it was all on Zoom and we've come to resolution. You know, the thing about human communication is there's unspoken communication, and as a mental health professional, it's really part of our role is intuiting, is picking up what's going on within the person, outside the person, and kind of in this energetic field that happens. It's not really woo-woo, it just is when we communicate. So part of what happens in Zoom is similar to what happens in person, is that it's a way of being able to pick up what's being said and not being said. And look, is it better in person? Sure. It's always better to have a true interaction with a person in my actual presence. And yet there are also benefits at times too, to have a Zoom conversation, particularly when there's a lot of feelings going on, when people are nervous, when things are heightened. So it's not necessarily a negative. That's really what I want to answer that question with.
Perfect, thank you. And another question that I have then for Donna, the financial, most people, right, I think all of us can agree, anyone who's facing separation or divorce, they really have a huge concern about two incomes in one household now going to a single income stream in another household, and how they can split that up. So a lot of times when people walk into my office and we discuss collaborative, the first thing they say is, why do I need a financial person? I have limited resources as it is. And I know, Donna, you touched on, if there are extremely limited resources, perhaps they don't need to hire a financial neutral. For the most part, things get very complicated with pensions, with premarital versus postmarital. So the first thing that they're going to ask is, why do I need this person? And how much is this person going to cost? And is this person going to take my spouse's side? I hear that all the time. I don't want a woman because it's going to take my wife's side, or vice versa. So what are your suggestions and your thoughts on that as far as someone who's coming in, getting a divorce, and explaining to them how this can benefit them and how you're not going to be taking sides?
Okay, so there's really a couple of questions in there, so let me just take them one at a time. So why is this necessary? Well, as part of the collaborative process, because everyone comes to the table with settlement in mind, the role of the financial neutral is really to help all parties concerned, the people getting divorced as well as the professionals involved, to think outside the box. The court system is very specific and narrowly focused on a couple of things: the division of retirement assets, the calculation of maintenance, and the calculation of child support. After that, everything is really left up to you. So you have to start to get a little bit creative as to how to get to the end result, which is that this once joined household is now able to survive and thrive as two separate households. And it's not always a clear-cut black and white answer. So the role of the financial neutral is really, because of the training that we have specific to equitable distribution, as well as the taxation of certain assets versus others, the rules that have changed around retirement plans, the rules that have changed around Social Security, on how to use all of those things in order to achieve the end goal, which is to make sure that this family, especially when there are children involved, this family will be able to continue in a different way. And that's where the roadmap comes into play. So the cost of it, it's sort of like the idea of, I'm going to pay one person to do everything. And their expertise is really only in one area. So Liz, let's just use you and I as the examples. So you as the attorney have a very, very extensive, deep understanding of the law, but you may not know the nuances of when there's an annuity in a retirement plan and what that means. So it might take you, even though you can certainly find the answer, it might take you 2 or 3 times as long to get that answer. Whereas if you bring in someone who is specifically trained in assets and taxes, they can come up with that answer in half the time, or even, almost no time at all, thereby saving everyone time and money. And that's where it really comes into play. I remember years ago, there used to be a series of commercials, and I think it was Charles Schwab, and they would show, the dentist trying to perform oral surgery on himself, or the surgeon trying to do open heart surgery on himself. And the idea is really that you go to the expert to do the expert's job. Being that we are all collaboratively trained, we do work together. And the fact that I don't have a prior relationship, or any of the financial neutrals don't have a prior relationship with the couple, we don't have a previous relationship with you. Therefore, we can take a more neutral stance to the situation, because we're working with both of you to achieve a common goal. And it's just a much different relationship from the very beginning of the process. So that's why it works better than if you bring someone in that's known you for 30 years, because they already know you and they do have a bias. But a financial neutral, by virtue of the phrase and the training, does not have a bias towards the situation.
Well, thank you again. And I do have to say that and whoever wants to answer this can, and Aaron, you're certainly more than welcome to. I just know that the number one question that I always get asked is, how is collaborative different or better than mediation? Why would I choose the collaborative process over mediation? And I know that there's so many different answers, from legal to financial to the family support specialist role, but I leave that open to whoever wants to pick that up, just to give a little snapshot of how we differ and the nuances between the two.
I'm happy to pick that up, Liz. In the mediation scenario, you have one person who is trying to help two parties reach a goal. The difference in the collaborative process, the primary difference is that each party has their own representative. Sometimes in mediation, the parties won't feel that sense of security, that they're on an equal footing with their spouse if they don't have somebody that they can turn to for advice. So whereas with mediation, which is also a settlement-minded process, collaborative law is of the same ilk, you each have your own individual representative. You have somebody that you can turn to for independent advice while still moving down that settlement track.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'd one thing, it's still allowing oneself and committing to being transparent. It's just having more support along the way. And the fact that the family support specialist is in there as well, it adds another dimension to really help support the couple in the process and the team.
Yeah, I think, Elise, you really hit on something about the full disclosure. And considering that we are all trained in the mediation process and the collaboration process, and that we also all have been involved in the litigation process, either as an attorney or as a financial professional or a mental health professional, the key really is that building a team from the very beginning that is fully disclosing everything cuts down on the issues of, oh, wait a minute, there's this hidden asset, or there's this longstanding emotional issue, or I'm really going to try to do as much as I can to keep as much as I can and not be fair about it. The collaborative process just cuts down on all of that, because the professionals are committed to the process and to being completely open with each other. And if I hear something from the couple in my meetings with them from a financial standpoint, I'm going to circle back to the rest of the professionals in the group and say, are you aware of this? That does not mean that when there's an issue that needs some sensitive handling, that we're going out with a megaphone and telling everyone's business. There still is confidentiality. So the people involved need to understand that we are taking those specific instances into account, but the professionals are committed to being open and fully disclosing everything so that we can continue the process moving along, and you don't get bogged down in the, oh, I didn't know that that even existed, now we need to circle back and start all over again.
Thank you very much for that. I know we don't have much time left, but I do see that there was a question about the cost difference between mediation and collaborative. And I know we did touch on this, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We said that we were going to end at 11:30. We will have continuing collaborative chats, which Aaron mentioned at the beginning. The collaborative circle, we're going to release the times and dates for those. And we really hope that people come with their questions, with their comments, and we certainly want to address that in more detail at that time. But just very briefly, I will say that there's no guarantee as to how much anything in life is going to cost, right? But the one thing we can guarantee you is the collaborative process is going to be a much more efficient use of your time, your money, and your emotional resources. And the difference between the costs, the financial costs that you're going to spend between litigation and collaborative, there's no comparison. And it gets a little bit more nuanced when you're talking about the difference between collaborative and mediation. Again, this is very, very specific to the individual case, to the couple and their needs, the support system that they need. So we certainly welcome going into more detail on that in the future. And again, I want to thank everybody here for participating, and Aaron's going to close it out. But again, I'm more than thrilled and honored to be part of this wonderful, wonderful team.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you, everybody, today for joining us again. And to Elise, Donna, and Deb, you did a phenomenal job. And again, you know how to contact us. On the slide, we'll be sending out a replay. And we look forward to doing more of these in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you all.